I've only read one romance novel because I was really interested in them in my book and I was writing. So it's called A Devil in Winter, and it's about a young woman who has a stutter, who like nobody notices her because she's one of the wallflowers, so she's a very shy young woman. And in order to inherit her father's estate, because her father is about to die or something, and keep it from her evil whatever uncle, she has to get married, and so she marries this guy who's an heir to a fortune, but he's a rake. He's always drunk and he's carousing, and I think he tried to literally rape her friend. Something happened like that, and they get married within the first like 20 pages.
Right.
So, but then it's supposed to be just a marriage of convenience, and they're not supposed to actually be in love. But he's very competent and very kind to her. And in the book, I've never heard so many descriptions of like feeling cold and then getting warm. So like on this carriage ride, because they have to take a carriage all the way to Scotland from London, because Scotland was where you used to elope back in the whatever 1800s. He keeps like a warm rock at her feet, or he always makes sure that she's warm enough. And so the whole relationship, I don't know if that's a common trope in romance novels, is like somebody keeping you warm. I don't know.
Sometimes like you have these bizarre ones where like, they're trapped somewhere, right? And it's all about protecting the other person. And that can be an excuse to sleep together, right? You got to share body warmth. So there can be a little bit of that, but that sort of, it has that very historical kind of romance flair to it, it sounds like, where, exotic location. You think
well, the last thing I'll say is, so she says they sleep together one time so that they consummate, so that their relationship is legible to the law or whatever. But then she's like, I won't sleep with you again because you're a rake and you're out with these other women all the time. So she makes him be monogamous for 3 months. And then he is monogamous for her because he loves her so much, of course. But then he gets shot. Sorry if anybody's going to read this. He gets shot. So then I think at that point, he's like, not just beholden to her, but like he.
All right. So the host here is Diana Fleischman, evolutionary psychologist, talking to Catherine Salmon.
Actually can't run around like he used to. And so in some ways, he's both monogamous, and then he's also injured in such a way that he must be monogamous to her. So it's a little bit of Clockwork Orange, like there's some physical limitation to it.
It seems like an unusual way of sort of taming the hero that you typically see in a romance novel. That's when you think about it that way, that's been such a huge part of the romance novel genre, is like the whole long-term mating.
I remember I broke my wrist playing football, and it increased the desire of this woman I was seeing to sleep with me.
Sort of scenario, right? And getting the guy to behave in the way that you want him to. So
yeah, and the jealousy and the other interlopers and all that kind of stuff. Isn't it a common thing in romance novels and slash fiction, we'll talk about later, for people to be wounded or injured, right? And for people to care for other people.
Yeah. I think it's part of if you have somebody or character who's often not vulnerable, it's a way to make them vulnerable and make them need the other person in different ways. I think that is often used as a vehicle to get them where you want them to go, right? If you think about what do you need to do to get characters to get together, that can definitely be one that you see. I think you probably even see it more in like things like slash fiction than you do in traditional heterosexual romance, just because there often may be other things that you need to do to get them together that maybe above and beyond what you might see in a regular romance novel. But definitely, I think you see that, where especially if it's the guy that's injured, right, in a heterosexual romance, or slash, it could be either of the guys, but I think that it definitely is a way to show vulnerability and then the other person's ability to take care of them. And then also it's a chance for people to recognize how attached they are, right? If somebody's been badly injured and there's a risk you could lose them, then, that can be a big impetus to pushing up.
If you're taking care of somebody when they have low social value, that's a kind of vehicle for gratitude, but it also is like kind of a way of getting a partner at a discount. If you take care of somebody like when they're on the low, like when they're undervalued in the market. What is romantotopia and what is pornotopia, and what are the differences between the two?
Okay, so like Romantopia, and God, it's been years since Thought Signs and I first wrote about this, but Romantopia is like this idealized, fantasy world that is created for women in romance novels, right? This is a world in which, it's about it's about long-term mating. It's about, what are the features of the hero, right, that are appealing in a long-term romance. It's about the journey to get there. It's about commitment. It's about cost. I guess sex that's costly as opposed to sex that's cheap, which in a sense is the contrast, right, to pornotopia, where pornotopia is the genre or the fantasy world that we see in pornography, where it is about short-term mating, and it is about women who are not expensive to get to have relationships with you, right? It's about women who are always, willing and beautiful and young and are not going to demand a lot of you for consenting to sexual relationships. So, the big differences, I think, between them are the long-term versus short-term focus.